Right, hello. Right, welcome to this video. So the point behind this video is I've had the Deluge now for 3 weeks. Got it 3 weeks ago today. I've been using it pretty much every day because it's flipping amazing. And what I thought I'd try and do, I think I did this about a week ago, after having it for a couple of weeks. I thought, okay, let's try it out and see if I can write a complete song on here, using all the sounds off here and arrange the whole thing on here and do the whole thing off here, which is what I've done. Excuse me. So I wanted it to still sound like me. So if you know my music, obviously most of my stuff has a some sort of 303 sound in there. So I've created a 303 patch in here. There is a video on my channel already about that shows you how to do that. And I've used the 808 kit on here again because I usually use an 808 on most of the stuff I've done. Then there's some other bits and bobs in here as well. So yeah, basically everything is coming from here. Right, there's no sounds from anywhere else. If you just look at the connections, all I've got is the USB for the power, and I've got my audio out. There's no MIDI connections. They're actually my MIDI cables that are normally plugged in. They're taken out at the moment just to show you that I'm not cheating. I'm not using a 303 or anything else externally. All the sound is coming from this. So we're in a Arranger. Yeah, the Arranger view at the moment. I'm not going to go into massive detail on how to use the Arranger view. I will a bit, but I'm going to do a separate, more in-depth video on that. But what I will do when I've played through the song, I will try and explain how I've made it, and hopefully you can see sort of the workflow that I went through to get to this finished track. And then I will kind of talk through as well what I would then do with it once I've got it to this stage. So this is the track. I'm going to play it through now. I think it's about 5 minutes. So if you want to skip forward 5 minutes and not listen to the track and see how I did it, that's fine. If you want to listen to it, then you can. Feel free to do so. The track is called Flooding Acid. So here we go. I'm going to play the track through, and then I will be back at the end to talk through how I made it. Okay, so there we have it. That was the full track. Hope you enjoyed that. If not, just watch and see how I made it. Okay, so let's just go into the song view, and we'll zoom right out. So let's zoom in a little bit more. So these are my tracks. So let's just go through each one. Quickly go through each one. So the top one is the bass line. The second one is then just that like weird droney noise. Actually, no, this is the proper bass line one. I'll talk about why there's two of those in a second. That's that little kind of lead sound. That's the pad, and then all the next lot, which was the pad, that one, are the drums. Which I won't go through all of those, but I'll go through each of those separately in a second. I think that's it. All the rest are all the drum sections. Right. So where do we start? Let's start with the right. So the main bit, the 303 part. So if we go into the track view, let me check. That's not the one I want. It is the top one. Right. So this was the original 303 track, which started out life as a 2-bar loop like that. So let's just play that. Okay, so it just started as a little 2-bar loop like that. And if you want to know how I made the sound, say there's a separate video on my channel about that to get all the slides and everything. Once I'd got that basic pattern down, and I was kind of messing around with it, and I felt it needed the filter changing, kind of automating the filter as we played it through, the filter, the cutoff, and the envelope mod, and so on, just to get that nice acidy sound. So in a range view, you can, if it's only 2 bars long, you can only record 2 bars of automation, and I think I'm right on that. I'm sure somebody will tell me if I'm wrong, but it will just keep repeating that automation over 2 bars, or if you keep recording it, it's just going to keep recording over it. So you can only have automation over the length of the bar. What would be an amazing feature on this is to have an automation track, similar way that you can do within Ableton. So if you've got a 2-bar loop, but you could have like a 64-bar automation lane for that track, would be fantastic. So hopefully that's something that will come up in a future update. So what I did was I kept the original one just in case, and then on this track I just basically kept multiplying it, and as you can see, this track is now 64 bars long, and it's just repeating that 2-bar loop over and over, okay, for 64 bars. So then when we went into arrangement mode, which is this top one here, I think, all right. Yeah, sorry, I'm not zoomed in enough. Yes, it is the top one. Okay, we got there eventually. So basically, all I had to do was just light up one there. So that is then it will basically do all of this. So this is kind of like where that loop of 64 bars starts, and this is kind of all the tail on it. So if I press on one of these, it will take me into the track. And then all I did is I just shortened it at the end, just because it may not actually be 64 bars long. I can't remember. So yeah, I just then made sure the end point was where I wanted it to be. And then all I did was I played it through in real time, hit record, and then I was changing all the parameter dials. If I play a little bit of it, you'll see these moving. Hopefully. Okay, so it's going down a little bit there. It's got on the cut off. Okay, so you can see hopefully that one moving up and down. Okay, so that's basically just recorded that automation for me. So that's the way I got over wanting to record automation, basically over a 64 bar track, because I say I wanted it to that sound to sort of evolve over time, constantly changing during the track. So that's how I did that one. I'm going to do the drums last. So this one's just like a droney kind of thing. Is this one? So that's basically just this sound that runs for a couple of beats, and then it's just one bar that repeats over and over again, and that kind of just runs sort of in the background throughout most of the track. I think, if I remember rightly, that was one of the artist pack samples that came with the Deluge to start with. So we've then got this one. Okay, so this is just again a again I did the same with this as I did with the 303 track. This is also 64 bars long because I wanted to get some automation on that, just opening up the filter and closing it as it went along. It's just one of the internal sounds on the synth. I think it's number 5, preset 5, and I just tweaked the sound a little bit, which is why it's 5Fs, because I saved a few different versions of it. So yeah, I did the same thing with that. If we're going to arrange a view, that comes in, going the wrong way. Is there, so that's, no it's not. Sorry, I'm zooming. I'm getting my zooms all over the place. It's that one. Okay, so that then comes in there. The track at the bottom is the droney one. And then this one is the pad, which is preset 19 off the Deluge, and I think I did this as an 8 bars, did I? Oh no, only 1 bar. Let's play it from... Hold on, let's get onto the correct track. So this is one of the things that is one of the... I'll talk about it because, I mean, I keep banging on about how much I love this thing. There are some limitations on it. Obviously, you've got to remember what colour your track is, which can get a bit annoying at times. There we go. Okay, that's the pad. So this, 16 bars long, this one. So all I did in this was I had it in keyboard view, and I just kind of randomly played some of these notes that are in this scale. Again, that is going to evolve. Oh no, it's not 16 bars long. Sorry, it's 4 bars long. I think. No, tell a lie. It is 16 bars long. Yep, we'll get there eventually. So yeah, that's just like random note. Well, not random notes, but I just kind of like played about with a few things. I just wanted this nice kind of pad sound that would just sort of evolve in the background over the 16 bars. Which then comes in the track partway along. I'll go through the arrangement bit in a second. So that's the main instrument parts, and then we've got the drums. So I'm using the same kit each time. Obviously, you can only have one instance of the kit playing each time, and the drum parts basically just build up each time. So it starts off with just the kick, 2-bar loop each time. I didn't use that in the end, I don't think. I think that's a weird little sound in the background that I didn't use. So then the second part of the drum part just brings in the offbeat open offbeat closed hi-hat. We've then brought in a little kind of woodblock clave sound. And that hand clap, which I put a loaded delay on. Again, just using all the internal effects. We then brought in the this extra tom kind of sound on the next one. Shaker then on the next one. So that's coming in here. And then the last one was more for the breakdown section, which was just the open hi-hat. Sorry, the offbeat hi-hat. It's a closed hi-hat. It's not open. The hand clap and the little clave thing. So once I'd got all the parts, it was really just then a case of arranging it. And this just sometimes it's a little bit of trial and error. So I sort of worked out what I wanted to start with. So we started off with the this droney sound, and then with the kick and the drone sound. Sorry, I have some soloed out then. And it's basically just always going to be multiples of 4 or 8 or 16 before we bring stuff in. We'll then bring the acidy bass line in, which basically runs throughout the whole track. Then we'd then bring the lead line in, and we drop stuff out, and we bring the pad in, and so on. The bit that confused me on the first bit on the arranger view, and I say I will do a separate video on all this, is how you deal with like the different tracks you've got on your drums. Because what happens is when you go into arranger view, in this one I had however many 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like 6 different drum tracks. What happens is in arranger view they all get squished onto one track. So this is the drum track, and if you go back into here, what you can see is it assigns different color codings to them. So this one is the I've got some of them twice. I think there's about 12 different colors you can use. So the first one, I think that was the first one here, but yeah. Which was the first one? I can't remember. It doesn't matter. But anyway, so this is where it gets a little bit confusing. You've got to remember the color that it is. So like your third one that brings in, let's have a listen. Okay, so when I want the one to come in with the extra tom beat and stuff in, I've got to remember it's that like turquoisey colour. So that's that one here. So what happens is you start, if I just get rid of some of these, you start off with the one you want, the colour you want. And let's say I wanted to change this one to come in for the next pattern along, which is going to bring in, because I think it starts with the kick and then it brings the offbeat hi-hats in. Let's say I wanted to bring that in earlier. What I would do is you just got to change the colour. So you hold down and you turn the select knob, and you can see hopefully that's changing colour. So they are all my different drum parts. So it's really just a case of remembering which colour is which drum part, and they will all go on there. You've also got the ability to create a white one, which puts in a blank pattern, so you can then use that to just program some different drum fills. I've got a white one here, and I think all I had on that was I took everything out and just kept the offbeat hi-hat in that bit. So that's kind of basically how I made it. I hope that sort of makes some sort of sense. It kind of does to me. It's a very different way of working. I've just sat with this in the garden at night while the rest of the family are watching Love Island or something, because I can't be bothered to watch that, writing this song without any computer or anything, and it does make you use your ears a lot more as to what's, how you want to arrange it and the song, etc. So I found it actually quite easy. I'm actually working on a second track at the moment. What I would then do with this, because obviously this is by no means like a finished production, I'm happy with the arrangement, and I'm happy with kind of most of the sounds, but there's no EQ or anything on this. And I have to say, when I sort of exported this and I put it into Ableton, I just banged it through my mastering software, and I played it in the car, and it did sound very, very good. The kick drum, I don't know if it's my headphones on this, the kick drum's quite boomy on this, but when I played it in the car, it sounded brilliant without any extra EQing or anything like that. So the sounds in here, particularly the sampled ones, are really, really good. So to actually get it out of here and do something with it, what you do is you basically record it in real time and resample it. So you press shift and record, and the record button flashes quickly, and then you just press play and it will record it for you. You just got to let the whole thing go all the way through. You then take your SD card out, stick it in your computer, and it's there as a recording, as a single file, which is great if you're happy with mixing on here. You could mix on here, and it's something I'll probably will try and do, and I will try and get my head around, because I've said in previous videos, it makes you use your ears a lot more than anything else, mixing on here. But obviously I would still like to be able to have a bit more flexibility on mixing in Ableton. So there is a way of getting all the separate tracks out, but it is a bit long-winded, and the way you do it is like this. And it is quite a long-winded way of doing it. I'm just going to talk about a couple of things where this could be improved, hopefully on future updates in a sec. So basically you've got to, if you want each track to be separate to get into whatever your DAW you use, whether it's Ableton or Pro Tools or Cubase or whatever, you've basically got to just solo each track and export it. Well, not export it, resample it, re-record it, as I showed you a second ago, in real time. If you've only got a song that's got 3 or 4 tracks on, okay, that's not too bad. Depends on how long your track is as well. But when I'm mixing, I will like to, particularly with the drums, I would want a separate track for each part of the drums. So I would need to export the kick drum, then the hi-hat, then the woodblock clave sound, then the toms and everything else. Now, okay, you don't necessarily need to do the whole thing with that, because if it repeats, with the kick drum, you could just resample and record and export like 2 bars and then just duplicate that in your DAW, which kind of defeats a little bit of the object of the arrangement view, but because you're then having to rearrange it in Ableton. But I guess if you've worked your arrangement out in here, you've got your arrangement done, so that's not the end of the world. So you can get over it a little bit quicker on the drums if it's, like I say, patterns that repeat, and drums do most of the time. Your snare drum's usually on 2 and 4, and your kicks on 1, 2, 3, 4, and you just got to basically export any of the variations out. Obviously, something like the 303 track on here, I would have to do the whole thing of that in real time because I want the automation that I'd programmed in on there as well. Same with the pads and the other things. So there's kind of quite a bit of work involved, and it's up to you how much you want to separate the tracks out to re-record them and export them, and then stick them in your DAW. You might be happy with just mixing and doing the whole thing in this, but obviously you're still going to need to get it out of here at some stage to get it mastered and whatever for release, if that's something you're planning on doing. So it is a bit long-winded because I'd had, particularly with the tracks where I've got a lot of automation in, it took me about half an hour, 40 minutes just to get the individual tracks out of here. To get them into Ableton to then master it. I've not actually mixed it a lot in Ableton yet. I did just, like I say, I put it through the mastering software, and it does sound very good. And sound quality wise, I don't think it's going to need a lot of mixing. I think all the sounds, particularly the samples, have obviously been EQ'd and mixed and so on before they're put into the unit. So a great feature would be, for me, something like what the Electribe does. Now, obviously, this is not just purely a thing for writing and arranging songs on. It's a synthesizer, it's a sampler, it's a MIDI controller, and so on. So it's not the be-all and end-all, but the fact that they've put the new arranger mode in obviously means that they're wanting people to use this to write and arrange songs on it, which is, I'm going to be doing a lot of mine on here now, because it's just so easy to do. It's so portable. You're not waiting for your computer to load up. You're not waiting then for Ableton to load up, which seems to take forever on my laptop. You switch it on and you're away. So it's great for... The way I'm kind of seeing I'm going to use it mostly is for sketching ideas out, and then I'll bring it into the studio. And then, for example, this 303 part, I can then easily send out the MIDI for that to my TB03 or my MB33 and record the sound of that as well if I want in the future. So it's got lots of flexibility on that. But, I was jabbering on now about, that was it, the Electribe. The Electribe has the Ableton export function where you just press a button, it does its thing in the background, and then it creates on an SD card an Ableton Live set, and you just open that up in Ableton Live, and all your separate clips and everything are there ready and waiting for you. Now, I know everybody doesn't use Ableton Live, so basically what would be a fantastic thing would be, in the same way as you can do on Ableton Live, when you're exporting your track, you can export each track individually as a WAV file. So an absolute killer feature on this, I think, in a future update would be to be able to just press a button, it does its thing, and it creates basically the stems of your song for you. So you can then take them away into whatever DAW you use for further mixing or manipulation with effects and so on. So that would be a great thing. Already mentioned about automation lanes would be very, very useful, particularly with something like the drums, because even though this is all one drum instrument, each of the tracks is separate. So from a mixing point of view, if I go onto this one and I turn this volume down, let's say I turn that right down there. Okay, my next clip that's got some other stuff in it, that's like the kick drum, then this was like the kick and the hi-hat. The volume doesn't change on that one because it's a separate track. So I would have to go through, and as you've not actually got a readout on the display here, which would also be very useful, I think, for these parameters, a readout on here so you can see what your volume is, because all I'm trying to do is match up the volume based on where the lights go to, and it's a little bit hit and miss I found with that. So again, that's where a separate automation lane would be very useful, because if I want to turn all of these drums down a bit from a mixing point of view, I've got to go through all of these clips separately and turn them all down, try and match the volume up. I don't know if I'm doing something wrong on that, and somebody please tell me if there is an easier way of doing it. I've kind of tried to do it like this, but again, you know, it only does the one that you see that, because I've not turned that one down. So, you know, by selecting this track, I've tried it on effect entire, but it doesn't seem to make any difference. So, and the cross screen thing doesn't work on this, I don't think, because that's designed for... No, it doesn't. I don't think it does, because that's designed for things on the same track. So yeah, that's a bit of an annoyance, particularly from the drum point of view. From a mixing point of view, does make that quite difficult to match the volumes up, which again is where you'd want to take it out into Ableton Live, or I keep saying Ableton Live because I use that, but whatever your DAW is that you use. So I think that's kind of covered everything I want to do and say on this. So hopefully that's of some interest to show you that you can actually write a whole song on here. There are some restrictions on it, there are some limitations on it, but I think they are limitations and restrictions that could quite easily be addressed in a future update. So if anyone from Synthstrom is watching, please put them in there. I should go on the forums, I suppose, and put those in. But I'm guessing people have already asked for these things. I can't be the only one who wants, you know, automation lanes and easier way of exporting. But anyway, there we go. I'm rambling on as usual. So if you found this one useful, please like the video, share it around. If you've got any questions or comments, stick them in the box below. Usual things. If you don't mind subscribing, if you haven't already, that would be much appreciated. And going to stream some of my music on Spotify, iTunes, and all that kind of stuff. So thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Cheers.